He grabbed her arm and tried to drag her out of the seat, but what she did next shut the whole class down. She didn't want to be noticed. That was the whole point. 13-year-old Janelle Carter stepped off the school bus in front of Ridgeview Middle School in Wichita Falls, Texas, wearing jeans, a faded hoodie, and a backpack that had seen better days. She kept her head low, her eyes scanning the sidewalk like it had something to say. A few students passed her, laughing about something on their phones, but no one looked her way. That was exactly what she wanted. It was late March. Most kids had already found their friend groups, their drama, their little roles they played in the social jungle that was 8th grade. Janelle wasn't here to join any of it. She was just hoping to make it through the day without being the reason people stared. She followed the map the office gave her and found room 203, homeroom. The teacher, Mr. Drummond, was young, probably in his 30s, and barely glanced up when she walked in. "You must be Janelle. Take any empty seat," he said, scribbling something on the whiteboard. There were only 2 open desks. One was near the window, next to a girl humming quietly while doodling in her notebook. The other was near the back, in the corner, and that's where she went. Fewer eyes, more wall. She didn't know she had already made her first mistake. That seat, according to some kind of unwritten law, belonged to Brixton Hale. Tall for his age, with shaggy hair that hung over his eyebrows, and an energy that was always just a little too much, Brixton walked in 5 minutes late with no backpack and no apology. A few kids fist-bumped him like he was famous. He looked around, stopped, then stared at Janelle, long, hard. It took her a second to realize why. He pointed. "You in my seat." It wasn't a question. The whole room got quiet, the way it does when a teacher's about to explode, but Mr. Drummond didn't even notice. He was still talking to another student near the front. Janelle turned slightly. "The teacher said pick any seat." Brixton smirked, not moving. "Yeah, but I sit there, every day." She didn't say anything. She didn't move either. A few kids were already watching, whispering. A girl 2 rows up had her phone angled low, like she might be filming. Brixton stepped forward. "You think you special or something? You can't sit in people's spots just 'cause you knew." Still, Janelle didn't move. Her hands stayed in her lap, fingers woven together so tight they turned red. Then Brixton reached for her arm, and that's when the room went completely still. But what Janelle did next wasn't what anyone expected. Brixton's hand didn't just hover, it grabbed. He latched onto Janelle's arm with a tight grip, tugging like he was yanking a backpack off a chair, not touching a human being. His voice turned sharp. "I said move!" That's when the gasps started. Small at first, like the class couldn't believe what they were seeing. Some kids looked at each other, eyes wide. Others looked at the front of the room, silently willing Mr. Drummond to turn around. But he didn't. He was still facing the whiteboard, halfway through an explanation about Texas history, oblivious to the slow car crash happening behind him. Janelle, still seated, didn't jerk her arm back. She didn't scream or cry or try to pull away. She just turned her head and looked at him. Not with fear, not with anger. She looked at him like she was trying to figure something out. Like he was the one acting strange, not her. Her voice was low, calm. "Take your hand off me." Brixton flinched. Just barely. He hadn't expected her to say anything, especially not like that. His mouth twitched like he was about to come back with something smart or cruel, but nothing came out. Then he yanked again. "I said..." Janelle stood up, slowly, without raising her voice, without pushing him. She stood with such control that it made the moment heavier, not lighter. He had to step back, or else they would have been nose to nose. "Does acting like this usually work for you?" she asked, voice still level. Someone in the room let out a half laugh, half cough. Not because it was funny, but because it was awkward, cringy, surreal, like watching a fight in slow motion where the quiet kid somehow had the upper hand. "Miss Carter," Mr. Drummond's voice finally cut through the tension. He'd finally turned around and saw the 2 of them standing off in the back of the room. "What's going on?" Before Janelle could speak, Brixton raised his voice. "She took my seat, and now she's trying to act like she owns the place." Mr. Drummond looked confused. "There are no assigned seats in this class." "But I sit there every day," Brixton barked, now pointing at the chair like it had his name etched into it. Janelle still hadn't sat back down. She just kept her eyes on the teacher now. "I was told to pick any empty seat. That's what I did. Then he grabbed my arm. That apart hung in the air like smoke. The teacher froze for a second. He grabbed you? A few students nodded. Someone mumbled, "Yeah, we all saw it." Brixton was suddenly defensive. "Man, I barely touched her. She's just making it a big deal because she—" He stopped himself. Too late. Everyone knew what he was about to say. It wasn't hard to figure out. Janelle didn't flinch. She just turned and sat back down in the exact same chair. "I'm not moving," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Drummond blinked, looked at Brixton, and said the one thing that no teacher had ever said to him before. "Go to the office." "What?" "You heard me. You need to leave the classroom." Brixton looked around, like this had to be some kind of joke. No one was laughing. "You're sending me out? You grabbed another student. That's not okay. Go explain it to the principal." And for the first time in a long time, Brixton Hale walked out of a room alone. He slammed the door behind him, but even that didn't seem to erase the shock left behind. For a few seconds, the room just sat there, suspended. Then, Mr. Drummond cleared his throat. Let's get back to the lesson." But no one was listening. All eyes were still on Janelle. She opened her notebook and clicked her pen, as if the whole thing hadn't even rattled her. But what none of them knew was that this moment was only the beginning. After the bell rang for second period, most kids bolted out like normal, but not Janelle. She packed her things slowly, like someone who had nothing to rush for. A few students hovered by the door, stealing glances at her. Not openly. No one wanted to be obvious. But you could feel it. That sticky attention, like gum on your shoe. Someone whispered, "Did you see her face when he grabbed her? She didn't even blink." Another kid replied, "She's probably been through worse." Janelle heard it. She heard everything. But she didn't react. She just slipped on her backpack and stepped into the hallway like it was just any other school day. Except it wasn't. News of what happened had already spread past homeroom. In gym, in the lunch line, even in the locker room. Kids were whispering about the new girl who stood up to Brixton. Some people admired her. Others called her stuck up. A few said she was doing too much, trying to be hard on her first day. She didn't try to defend herself, not once. But what really surprised everyone came during fourth period. That's when Ms. Lane, her science teacher, got a visit from the school counselor. The classroom door cracked open, and Mrs. Haskins, a woman with reading glasses and a clipboard, leaned in. "Can I borrow Janelle Carter for a moment?" All eyes turned to her again. Ms. Lane nodded, and Janelle stood up, wordlessly, and followed. The walk to the counselor's office was quiet. Mrs. Haskins didn't speak until they were seated across from each other. "I wanted to check on you," she said gently. "Mr. Drummond reported what happened this morning. That's not something we take lightly." Janelle shrugged. "It's fine." Mrs. Haskins frowned. "Janelle, it's not fine. What Brixton did was wrong. No one should put their hands on you. Ever. Do you want to talk about it?" Silence. Then Janelle asked something unexpected. "Has he done that to other kids?" The counselor blinked. "We've had a few complaints, but most students don't want to talk about it, or they downplay it." Janelle nodded, slow and steady. "He doesn't scare me." Mrs. Haskins hesitated. "Where'd you transfer from?" "Clearwater Middle in Tulsa." "Big move." Janelle shrugged again. "People are the same everywhere." That hit the counselor harder than she expected. After a pause, she said, "You showed a lot of strength this morning, but just so you know, strength doesn't mean you have to do everything by yourself." Janelle met her eyes. For the first time, her expression cracked. Not tears, not emotion, just a tiny shift. A flicker. "Thanks," she said quietly. Mrs. Haskins offered a soft smile. "You're welcome to come talk anytime." Back in the hallway, as Janelle returned to class, she passed a group of students by the lockers. One of them, a tall girl with dark curls and glasses, stepped out of the group and fell into step beside her. "I'm Zadie Moreno," the girl said. "We have history together after lunch. That was wild, what happened." Janelle gave a small nod. Zadie continued, "Brixton's been like that since 6th grade. Most people just deal with it. Teachers look the other way. Some kids even laugh, like it's funny. But what you did, standing there like that, I've never seen that before." They walked side by side for a few more feet. "I just didn't want to move," Janelle said. Zadie chuckled. "Well, you made your point." For the first time all day, Janelle smiled. Tiny, barely there, but real. But things were far from over. Brixton wasn't done, and neither was the school. By lunch, it felt like the entire school had chosen a side, and most didn't even know the full story. Some students were saying Brixton had been suspended. Others swore he was just in the principal's office, sweet-talking his way out of trouble like he always did. A few even blamed Janelle, accusing her of snitching and bringing drama. But what Janelle didn't know was that a teacher from another classroom, one who had seen the last few seconds of the confrontation through the door window, had filed a separate report. It wasn't just Mr. Drummond anymore. Brixton's behavior was officially under review. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Janelle grabbed a tray and scanned the room. Everything was loud, tables packed, people laughing and shouting over each other. It all felt like static. Then she saw Zadie. Zadie was sitting near the window with two other girls, both mid-bite when they noticed Janelle looking their way. Zadie gave a little wave, then motioned to the empty spot beside her. Janelle walked over. "You sure it's okay?" she asked. Zadie tilted her head. "You're the one who stared Brixton Hale in the face and didn't flinch. I think you'll survive our table." The other girls laughed. "This is Naomi, and that's Kelsey," Zadie said. "They've been here since kindergarten, so they know all the dirt." Naomi leaned in. "We heard you stood up to Brixton and made him shut up." "I didn't make him do anything," Janelle said, unwrapping her sandwich. "He made a choice. I made mine." Kelsey grinned. "That's cold." "It's called having boundaries," Zadie added. "More people should try it." The conversation drifted to other things, gym teachers, pop quizzes, and who might be dating who. But the mood was different now, lighter, safer. For the first time that day, Janelle didn't feel like a walking headline. But across campus, Brixton was pacing the small room outside the assistant principal's office, chewing the sleeve of his hoodie and muttering under his breath. "Can't believe this," he kept saying, "over a seat." Mr. Tilley, the assistant principal, finally opened the door. "Come in, Brixton." Inside, Brixton sat across from him and the school's behavior specialist, Ms. Dupree, a woman known for having zero tolerance for excuses. She got right to the point. "We've received 2 reports saying you grabbed a new student during class, that you tried to pull her out of a seat while yelling at her." "It wasn't like that," Brixton snapped. "She was being rude. She didn't care that I always sit there." Mr. Tilley raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't explain the physical part. Why did you grab her arm?" "I didn't grab her," Brixton lied. "I touched her sleeve. That's it." Ms. Dupree tapped her pen. "We've already watched the hallway camera footage from just before and after, and we have multiple student witnesses. Do you want to try again?" Brixton sank into the chair. "I didn't mean anything by it. I was just frustrated." "Do you think frustration makes it okay to put your hands on someone?" she asked. Silence. Mr. Tilley chimed in. "You've had 3 other incidents this year, Brixton. 1 more, and the district's going to push for alternate placement." Brixton looked up, eyes wide. "You mean like expulsion?" "No," Mr. Tilley said flatly, "but it's not far off. You need to think about how you treat people, especially students who are new, who don't know anyone, who are just trying to learn like the rest of you." Back in class, Mr. Drummond made an announcement before 7th period started. "I want to say something real quick," he said, setting down his coffee. "What happened earlier today isn't something we're brushing aside, and no one should feel unsafe in this room, not because of where they sit, how they look, or who they are. If you have an issue, use your words, or talk to me. But this classroom doesn't belong to any one person." He paused and scanned the room. A few kids nodded. Some stared at their desks. Janelle didn't look up, but she heard every word. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase what happened. But it mattered. But while things seemed to be calming down, something unexpected was coming. From someone no one expected. It started with a note. Nothing fancy, just torn notebook paper, folded twice, and slipped into Janelle's locker sometime between 6th and 7th period. No name, no hearts. Just 6 words written in tight, messy handwriting. "He's been like that to me." At first, Janelle thought it was a joke, another student trying to stir things up. But something about the way the letters slanted, like whoever wrote them had rushed, felt real, honest. She tucked it into her hoodie pocket without telling anyone. That night, while sitting on the floor in her aunt's living room, the place she was calling home since her mom started treatment back in Oklahoma. She stared at the note again. What was she supposed to do with this? She didn't even know who wrote it. But whoever it was, they'd seen something in her, enough to finally speak up. The next morning, she got her answer. In homeroom, a boy named Kylan Rivers shuffled in late, hoodie pulled low over his face. He sat near the back, headphones around his neck, and didn't speak to anyone. Most people ignored him, the way schools sometimes do with quiet kids, but when the bell rang and class started, he did something unusual. He turned in his seat and looked directly at Janelle, then mouthed the words, "I wrote the note." Janelle blinked. He gave the tiniest nod, then turned back around like nothing happened. The shock didn't come from what he said. It came from who he was. Kylan was known for staying out of everything, always alone, always silent. Nobody really knew him, which is why nobody expected him to admit something like that. After class, Janelle caught up to him by the stairwell. "You really wrote it?" she asked. He nodded, not meeting her eyes. "Yeah." "What happened?" Kylan hesitated, then said, "Sixth grade. He slammed me into a locker because I didn't give him my chocolate milk." She stared at him, waiting. "That sounds dumb now, but it was worse than that," Kylan continued. "He didn't just want the milk. He wanted me to be scared of him. And it worked. How come you didn't tell anybody?" He shrugged. "They don't listen. They say they will, but nothing happens. So you learn to stay small." Janelle shook her head. "Not anymore." Keelan's eyes flicked to hers. "Why do you care?" "Because someone should," she said. That same afternoon, in the counselor's office, they sat side by side. Two quiet kids who'd both had enough. Mrs. Haskins looked surprised, but didn't interrupt. Kylan did the talking this time, slow, cautious, but honest. He told her everything. The milk, the threats, the way Brixton had mocked his stutter in front of a group of kids, how he'd felt too ashamed to say anything. When he finished, Janelle added one thing. He wasn't just being mean. He was testing people, seeing who would fold. Mrs. Haskins listened carefully, then said, "Thank you, both of you. This helps more than you know." The school couldn't ignore it anymore. With two official reports, one from Janelle, now supported by Kylan, the administration finally called Brixton's parents in. A meeting was scheduled. A behavioral review was triggered. But something else happened too. Kids started talking. One by one, students who'd said nothing for years suddenly found their voices. Not everyone wanted to go to the office, but people started whispering stories in the hallway, texting each other during study hall, sitting in corners of the library sharing things they hadn't told anyone. Brixton's name kept coming up, not just for teasing, for targeting, for bullying people who didn't laugh at his jokes, or who wore cheap shoes, or who just existed too quietly for his liking. By Friday, Ridgeview didn't feel the same. In seventh period, Ms. Lane paused her lesson to say something that caught Janelle off guard. "You've been through a lot this week. I just want to say, I see you, and I see the courage it takes to speak when staying quiet is easier." Janelle felt her ears go hot. She didn't respond, but her pen moved faster after that. After school, as she walked to the bus with Zadie, Naomi, and Kelsey beside her, someone else caught up from behind, Kylan. He didn't say anything, just handed Janelle another note and kept walking. She opened it on the bus. "Thank you for not folding." But while students were finally speaking up, Brixton himself wasn't done, and what he did next would test everything Janelle had started. The next Monday started quiet. Too quiet. Brixton hadn't been at school since Thursday. Rumors swirled. He was suspended. He was sent to a behavior center. His parents pulled him out. Nobody really knew. Nobody really missed him either. But then, halfway through second period, the classroom door opened. There he was, Brixton Hale. His swagger was gone. He didn't have that usual smirk. His hair wasn't gelled up like he was ready for a hallway photo shoot. He just walked in, handed Mr. Drummond a paper, and sat down without saying a word. The whole room tensed. He didn't look at anyone, especially not Janelle. At lunch, Zadie leaned in close and whispered, "He's back. You okay?" Janelle nodded, but her stomach flipped. She wasn't scared exactly, but she wasn't relaxed either. She kept glancing over her shoulder the way you do when you've walked through fire once and know it still smells like smoke. Then, fourth period. Ms. Lane was going over a lab worksheet when a knock came at the door. Everyone turned. Mrs. Haskins stepped in. "Can I borrow Janelle for a few minutes?" A few students oohed softly. Miss Lane gave them a look, then nodded. Out in the hallway, Janelle followed the counselor down to the small conference room near the front office. She expected more questions, maybe a follow-up on her report, maybe something about Keelan. But instead, Brixton was already sitting there, and so were both their parents. Janelle froze. Mrs. Haskins gestured toward a chair. "No one's in trouble. I just want everyone to hear the same thing, in the same room." Janelle sat slowly. Her aunt, Rhonda Whitlow, gave her hand a quick squeeze. Across the table, Brixton looked up, then down again. He looked smaller. Mrs. Haskins started. "This isn't about punishment. It's about ownership and healing. Brixton asked to say something to you directly, Janelle, if you're willing to listen." Janelle nodded once, but her face stayed hard. Brixton cleared his throat, eyes still low. "I don't really know how to say this. I messed up. I know that." Silence. "I thought if I acted a certain way, people wouldn't mess with me, so I messed with them first. I didn't think about what it felt like. I didn't care." Still no response from Janelle. "I'm sorry," he said, "for grabbing you, for making you feel like you didn't belong. That was wrong." Rhonda leaned back slightly. Her face was unreadable, arms crossed. Mrs. Haskins turned to Janelle. "You don't have to respond, but if you want to, this is your space too." Janelle took a breath, then another. She turned to Brixton, her voice steady. "You didn't just grab me. You tried to control me. You wanted to embarrass me. And if I had let it happen, you'd be doing it to someone else right now." Brixton blinked, but didn't speak. "I accept your apology," Janelle said, "but that doesn't mean we're good. You have work to do." He nodded slowly. "I know." Mrs. Haskins gave a small, relieved smile. "That's more than I expected from either of you. Thank you." Afterward, in the hallway, Janelle and her aunt walked toward the exit. Rhonda looked over and said, "You didn't have to say anything in there, you know." "I know," Janelle said, "but I wanted to." "Why?" Janelle shrugged. "Because people were watching. Not just him. Everybody." That night, she opened her school email. There were 3 new messages. One from a student named Mira Barlow saying, "I never told anyone what he said to me. You made me feel like I could." One from Mr. Drummond, who wrote, "You reminded me today why I started teaching in the first place." And one from Keelan. All it said was, "Some people break things. You fix them." The next morning, Janelle sat down in that same seat, back of the class, by the wall, like it had always been hers. Brixton walked in late again, but this time, he took a different seat, quietly. He didn't look her way. He didn't need to. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can say is, nothing. And just like that, the class moved forward. Maybe the whole school did too. Not because of a punishment, but because one girl decided she wouldn't move for anyone who didn't respect her. Sometimes courage looks like standing. Sometimes it looks like staying seated. But always, it looks like refusing to be small when someone tries to shrink you. If you felt something in this story, share it. You never know who might need to hear it. And if you are Janelle, quiet, steady, strong, don't ever let anyone push you out of your seat.